It all began when angels broke heaven's law. They were never supposed to look down. The Watchers, 2,000 of heaven's most powerful angels, stood at the edge of the celestial realm, their eyes fixed on something they had been forbidden to desire. Below them, the daughters of men danced in the firelight, their laughter echoing up through the dimensions like a siren's call. Semjisa, their leader, felt the pull first, not the pure love that angels were created to express, but something darker, something that would unravel the fabric of creation itself. "Brother," whispered Azazel beside him, "we were warned." Semjasa's jaw tightened. "We were also given free will." In the beginning, God had established order, heaven above, earth below. Angels served, humans lived, and the boundary between realms remained sacred. The Watchers were assigned to observe humanity, to guard them, to report back to the Most High about the progress of His beloved creation. But observation became obsession. Year after year, the Watchers watched. They saw humanity multiply across the earth. They witnessed the beauty of human choice, human passion, human love, and something twisted inside them, a longing that should never have existed in beings of pure spirit. The daughters of men were beautiful, yes, but it wasn't just physical beauty that ensnared the Watchers, it was their mortality, their fragility, the way they loved fiercely, despite knowing their time was short. Angels, eternal and unchanging, had never experienced such desperate, burning passion. Semjasa called a meeting on Mount Hermon. The 2,000 Watchers gathered under stars they had helped set in place at creation. The air hummed with tension. "We all feel it," Semjasa began, his voice steady but his essence trembling. "The pull, the desire. We were created to serve, but were we not also created with the capacity to choose?" Azazel stepped forward. "The Almighty forbade this," he said. "The realms must remain separate." "And yet He gave us free will," Semjasa countered. "What good is choice if we're not free to make it?" Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Some angels shifted nervously, their light flickering with doubt. Others leaned in, hungry for permission to do what they'd been dreaming of for centuries. "There will be consequences," warned Barakel, one of the eldest Watchers. Semjasa's eyes blazed with determination. "Then we face them together. I propose an oath. We bind ourselves to this decision, so that no single one of us bears the weight alone. If we fall as one." The silence that followed was deafening. Then, one by one, the Watchers stepped forward. They spoke an oath that would echo through eternity, words that would be whispered about in hushed tones for millennia to come, an oath that would damn them all. The first crossing was like tearing through reality itself. Semjasa descended first, his spiritual form compressing, solidifying, becoming something it was never meant to be. Flesh. The pain was excruciating. Angels weren't designed for physical limitation, for the weight of matter, for the prison of a body. But then he took his first breath of earthly air, and everything changed. He could smell. The earth smelled of rain and growing things, and distant fires. He could feel. The wind on his skin felt like liquid silk. He could taste. When he pressed his tongue to his lips, he tasted salt and dust and something indefinable, mortality. The other Watchers followed, one after another, materializing in the world of men, like falling stars. They took forms that were almost human but not quite too tall, too perfect, too otherworldly. Their eyes held the memory of heaven. They descended upon the daughters of men like a flood. At first, the humans were terrified. These beings, who appeared from nowhere, speaking in voices that seemed to harmonize with creation itself, claiming to be messengers from the divine, but terror gave way to fascination. The Watchers were beautiful, powerful. They knew secrets about the cosmos, about the nature of reality, about things humans had only dreamed of understanding. And they wanted wives. Semjasa, found her in a village at the foot of Mount Hermon. Her name was Istahar, and she was weaving cloth when he first approached. She looked up, and their eyes met, and in that moment, the last thread connecting Semjaza to his holy purpose snapped. "I am called Semjaza," he said, his voice making the air vibrate. "And I have crossed heaven and earth to know you." Istahar should have run. Every instinct should have screamed danger. But when an angel focuses the full intensity of his being on you, reason dissolves. "What are you?" she whispered. "Something that was never supposed to be here," he admitted, "and yet here I am." The wedding ceremonies began. 200 weddings in total, spread across the ancient world. The Watchers took human wives, and those wives bore children. That's when everything went wrong. The first Nephilim birth shattered reality itself. When Istahar's water broke, the midwives were confident. They had delivered thousands of babies. But when the contractions began in earnest, the ground shook, the sky darkened, animals for miles around fled in terror. Istahar screamed for 3 days. When the child finally emerged, the midwives stumbled backward in horror. It was a boy, but he was the size of a 3-year-old. His eyes glowed with an unnatural light, and when he cried, windows shattered for a quarter mile. Semjaza held his son, and for the first time since descending, he felt fear. "What have I done?" he whispered. The child grew at an impossible rate. By age 3, he stood 8 feet tall. By age 5, he was 12 feet, and could uproot trees with his bare hands. His name was Oyer, and he was only the first. Across the earth, the Nephilim were born, giants, hybrids, abominations that were neither fully angel nor fully human. They inherited their father's supernatural strength and their mother's appetites, but without the divine nature to temper them, they became monsters. The Nephilim consumed everything: food, animals, resources. Nothing satisfied their hunger. They grew violent, competitive, brutal. They began to war with each other, laying waste to entire regions. Some started eating animals raw, then they started eating humans. The Watchers watched in horror as their children became the very thing they had once protected humanity from, demons in flesh. But the corruption went deeper than anyone realized. The Nephilim could reproduce, and their offspring, while smaller, carried the same tainted bloodline. The very DNA of humanity was being corrupted, generation by generation. In heaven, the archangels brought reports before the throne of God. Michael spoke first. "The earth is defiled, Lord. The bloodline of Adam is being corrupted. If this continues, there will be nothing left of pure humanity to redeem." Gabriel added, "The Watchers have taught humans forbidden knowledge. Warfare, weapons, cosmetics, sorcery. They've accelerated human development in ways that breed only destruction." Raphael's voice was sorrowful. "The cries of the dying reach us constantly. The Nephilim show no mercy." God's response shook the foundations of creation. Enough. In a cave beneath Mount Hermon, Semjaza gathered the Watchers one final time. Their faces were haggard now, their essence dim. They had tasted mortality, and it was killing them slowly. "Brothers," Semjaza's voice cracked, "I have seen a vision, a terrible vision." "What did you see?" Azazel asked, though he already knew. They all knew. "Water," Semjaza whispered, "water covering everything, and a single boat. Above them, storm clouds gathered for the first time in human history. The rain that would wash the world clean was coming. But the story of the Nephilim wasn't over. It was only beginning. Noah was 480 years old when he heard the voice for the first time. He was working in his field, hands deep in the soil, when the air suddenly crystallized around him. Every sound stopped, every bird, every insect, every breath of wind, complete silence. Then the voice spoke, and Noah fell to his knees. Noah. It wasn't just sound, it was presence. Authority. Love and terror wrapped together in perfect balance. "Yes, Lord." Noah's voice trembled. I have seen the wickedness of man. The earth is filled with violence. The bloodline I created has been corrupted. I will send a flood to destroy all flesh. But you, Noah, you are righteous. You and your family will be saved. Noah lifted his head, confused. Lord, I don't understand. A flood? Build an ark, God commanded. I will give you the specifications. Gather your family and 2 of every kind of animal. You have 120 years. As the voice faded, Noah stood on shaking legs. Around him, the world continued as if nothing had happened. In the distance he could see one of the Nephilim, a 15-foot giant named Og, overturning a cart and eating a ox whole, bones and all. The earth had become a nightmare, and only Noah's family remained genetically pure, untainted by the Watcher bloodline. What they don't teach you in Sunday school is this: the flood wasn't just about human wickedness, it was a genetic purge. The Nephilim bloodline was spreading like a virus. By Noah's time, Genesis 6:4 tells us the Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward. The contamination had gone global. The Watchers, now bound in chains of darkness, 2 Peter 2:4, watched helplessly as their offspring terrorized the world they had destroyed. But they had one final trick up their sleeve. Azazel, speaking from his prison in the depths of the earth, called out to his most powerful son, Enoch. Father, Enoch's voice was a rumble that caused earthquakes. The flood is coming, my son. The Almighty will wipe the earth clean. But you must survive. You must ensure our bloodline continues. How? Enoch demanded. If he floods the earth, we all die. Not all, Azazel whispered. There are places the water cannot reach. High mountains, deep caves, and there is one more way, one I dare not speak aloud. But know this, our bloodline will not end with the flood. I have seen to it. What Azazel had done was diabolical. He had ensured that in the days before the flood, certain Nephilim bloodlines interbred with human populations in specific regions with high elevation, natural cave systems, and geographic isolation. The pure giants would die, but the diluted bloodline humans with just enough Nephilim DNA to carry the traits forward. They might survive in pockets that the flood couldn't reach completely. It was a genetic time bomb. For 220 years, Noah built. People mocked him. Rain? What's rain? The whole world flood. You're insane, old man. But Noah kept building, and as he built, he watched the world descend further into chaos. The Nephilim had divided the world into territories, each giant ruling his own kingdom of terror. They fought wars that devastated entire regions. They took whatever they wanted: food, resources, women. Humans had become cattle to them. Some humans worshipped the Nephilim as gods. Others formed resistance movements. But what could humans do against 20-foot giants with supernatural strength? The worst part: the Nephilim were breeding with each other now, creating even more powerful offspring. Second-generation Nephilim, who made their fathers look weak by comparison. Finally, the ark was complete. Noah gathered his family, his wife, his 3 sons, Shem, Ham and Japheth, and their wives, 8 people in total, 8 genetically pure humans, who would restart the world. Then came the animals. 2 by 2, they entered the ark, every species, led by an invisible hand. The parade lasted 7 days. On the 7th day, God himself sealed the door. That's when the sky split open. The Bible says the fountains of the great deep burst forth, and the windows of the heavens were opened. Genesis 7:11. What actually happened was apocalyptic. The ground exploded upward as massive underground water reservoirs ruptured. Geysers 1,000 feet high erupted across every continent. Simultaneously, the sky opened, and rain, something most humans had never seen before, began to fall in torrents. The Nephilim tried to fight it at first. Og climbed to the highest mountain peak, believing his height would save him. He stood there beating his chest, shouting challenges at the sky. The water rose to his ankles, then his knees, then his chest. When it reached his neck, he finally understood. He was going to drown. For 40 days and 40 nights the rain fell, the water covered the mountains. Every living thing on dry land died, including the Nephilim. Inside the ark, Noah's family heard the sounds, screams, roars, the thunderous impact of giants trying to break through the ark's walls. Then slowly, silent. The silence of extinction. The ark floated for 150 days before the waters receded. When Noah finally opened the door and stepped onto dry ground, he wept, not with joy, with grief. The world was empty, lifeless, a graveyard floating in mud. God appeared to Noah again, establishing a covenant marked by the rainbow. Never again would he destroy the earth with water. Noah's family spread out, repopulating the earth. Shem's descendants became the Semites. Ham's became the Egyptians, Canaanites, and Africans. Japheth's became the Europeans and Asians. For a while everything seemed redeemed. But then 400 years later, something impossible happened. Moses sent 12 spies into Canaan to scout the promised land. When they returned, 10 of them were terrified. "We saw the Nephilim there," they reported in Numbers 13:33. "The descendants of Enoch, we seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them." Wait, the Nephilim, but they all died in the flood, didn't they? Here's the bombshell. Genesis 6:4 explicitly states the Nephilim were on earth in those days and also afterward, after the flood. The bloodline survived. But how? There are 3 theories, and the Bible hints at all 3. Theory 1. Ham's wife. Some ancient texts suggest Ham's wife, whose name was Naamah, carried Nephilim genetics. She was described as beautiful beyond measure, a phrase often associated with Nephilim bloodlines. If true, the contamination came through the ark itself. Theory 2. The geographic survivors. Not all high-elevation areas were fully submerged. Some Nephilim or their hybrid offspring may have survived in mountain caves, repopulating afterward. Theory 3. Demonic re-entry after the flood. Other fallen angels, not the original Watchers who were imprisoned, repeated the same sin, creating new Nephilim generations. This is why we see giants in Canaan 800 years after the flood. The truth? Probably a combination of all 3. When Joshua finally entered the promised land, his first command from God was chilling. Destroy them completely. The giants, their cities, their children, leave nothing alive. Why such brutality? Because God knew what was at stake. The Nephilim weren't just giants. They were the corruption of humanity itself, and if their bloodline survived and spread, the coming Messiah, Jesus Christ, might not be born from a pure human bloodline. The entire plan of salvation hung in the balance. But here's what will shock you. The Nephilim bloodline didn't end in Canaan either. In 1406 BC, the Promised Land. When Joshua led the Israelites across the Jordan River, they weren't just fighting human armies, they were facing the last strongholds of Nephilim bloodline. The Bible names them clearly. The Anakim, descendants of Anak, giants who terrified the spies. The Rephaim, a race so massive their king, Og of Bashan, had a bed 13 feet long. The Emim and Zamzanim, terror-inducing giants, whose very names meant frightening ones. Goliath of Gath, a 9-foot warrior with 6-fingered hands, a Nephilim genetic marker. God's command to Joshua was unambiguous: utterly destroy them. Deuteronomy 20:17. This wasn't genocide, it was a genetic war. Every Nephilim bloodline had to be eliminated before it could spread again. The Israelites weren't just conquering land, they were finishing what the flood started. But here's the problem: they failed. Joshua 11:22 admits, none of the Anakim were left in the land of the people of Israel, only in Gaza, in Gath, and in Ashdod did some remain. They didn't finish the job, and those survivors, They went underground. Literally. After the conquest of Canaan, Nephilim survivors scattered across the ancient world, taking their knowledge and genetics with them. And this is where it gets wild. Egypt, the pharaohs, particularly those of certain dynasties, claim divine ancestry. Some ancient texts describe them as tall ones, with elongated skulls and unusual skeletal structures, with some Egyptian ruling families carrying diluted Nephilim DNA. The evidence is circumstantial but intriguing. To Greece. Greek mythology is filled with stories of the titans, demigods, and heroes born from gods mating with humans. Sound familiar? Hercules, Perseus, Achilles, all hybrid beings with supernatural strength. The Greeks weren't making this up. They were preserving oral histories of actual events, filtered through cultural lens. 3. The Americas. When Spanish conquistadors arrived in the New World, they reported encounters with giants. Pedro Sierra Leone documented Peruvian legends of a race of giants who arrived by sea and were eventually destroyed. Aztec codices described the Quinametzin, a race of giants who lived in the previous world age. Coincidence, or the Nephilim diaspora? 4. Northern Europe. Norse mythology speaks of the Jotun giants, who predated humans and warred with the gods. Celtic legends tell of the Fomorians, monstrous giants from the sea. Every ancient culture has giant stories. Why? Because they all encountered them. Here's where it gets really interesting: archaeological evidence. Throughout the 1800s and early 1900s, newspapers across America reported the discovery of giant skeletons. 1883, Ohio, 9-foot skeleton with massive jaw. 1895, West Virginia, 7-foot 6-inch skeleton with double rows of teeth, a Nephilim marker. 1912, Wisconsin, 18 skeletons ranging from 7.5 to 10 feet tall. Many of these remains were reportedly sent to the Smithsonian Institute and then vanished from public record. Now, before we go full conspiracy theory, let's be balanced. Many of these reports were likely hoaxes or exaggerations. Newspapers in that era weren't exactly fact-checked, but not all of them. Genesis 6:4 and Numbers 13:33 aren't myths. The Bible clearly states giants existed. So where did their bones go? Remember the original Watchers, they didn't get off easy. Jude 1:6 tells us, "And the angels who did not stay within their own position of authority, but left their proper dwelling, he is kept in eternal chains under gloomy darkness until the judgment of the great day." They're imprisoned right now, bound in Tartarus, the deepest abyss of hell, awaiting final judgment. But here's the terrifying part. Revelation 9 describes something that sounds suspiciously like their release. The fifth trumpet judgment opens the abyss, and out comes locust-like creatures with human faces, hair like women's hair, teeth like lions' teeth. They're led by Apollyon, the destroyer. They torture, but cannot kill for 5 months. Are these the imprisoned Watchers being temporarily released, or their hybrid offspring? The description is eerily similar to ancient descriptions of Nephilim. Then in Revelation 9:13-16, the sixth trumpet releases 4 angels bound at the Euphrates River, and they lead an army of 200 million. 200 angels, the same number of Watchers who originally fell. Coincidence? Jesus himself connected the dots. In Matthew 24:37, he warned, "As were the days of Noah, so will be the coming of the Son of Man." What were the days of Noah characterized by? Nephilim walking the earth, genetic corruption of humanity, violence and wickedness, humans living as if God didn't exist, a remnant, Noah's family staying faithful. Sound familiar? Look around today. Genetic manipulation, CRISPR, gene editing, transhumanism, merging humans with technology, moral decay, increased violence, mockery of God. We're not just like the days of Noah, we're repeating them. And here's the kicker. Jesus said his return would happen when conditions matched Noah's time. Revelation 19 describes Jesus' second coming. He returns on a white horse, leading the armies of heaven, and he makes war against the beast, the false prophet, the kings of the earth, their armies. But Revelation 19:19 says these armies gather to make war against him who was sitting on the horse and against his army. Who would be insane enough to literally fight Jesus Christ? Humans might be deceived, but they'd flee when they saw supernatural power. But Nephilim, hybrids with demonic pride and supernatural strength, they might actually believe they could win. The final battle at Armageddon might not just be a human war, it might be the ultimate rematch. Heaven versus the Nephilim, round 2. And this time, it's permanent. Revelation 20 describes Satan being bound for 1,000 years, and then released for a little while to deceive the nations one final time. After his final defeat, he and all who followed him, including the Watchers, the Nephilim, and every corrupted being, are thrown into the lake of fire, forever. So what's the point of all this? Why does the Nephilim story matter? Because it reveals the cosmic battle that's been raging since Genesis 3. Satan has always had one goal: corrupt the human bloodline so the Messiah can't be born. The Nephilim were attempt in one. When that failed, flood, he tried again in Canaan. When that failed, Joshua's conquest, he pivoted to killing the Messiah directly, Herod's slaughter, the crucifixion. But Jesus rose from the dead. The victory was won. Now Satan's playing end game, deceive as many people as possible before time runs out. The Nephilim story isn't just ancient history, it's a warning. Don't be deceived by false teachers. 2 Peter 2. Don't intermarry with darkness. 2 Corinthians 6:4. Stay genetically and spiritually pure. Watch for the signs of the end times. Be ready for Christ's return. But here's the good news, you don't have to be afraid. Jesus Christ defeated sin, death, and the powers of darkness. Colossians 2:15 says, he disarmed the rulers and authorities and put them to open shame by triumphing over them. The Watchers fell, the Nephilim failed, Satan will lose. And if you're in Christ, covered by his blood, sealed by his Spirit, you're on the winning side. The Nephilim may return, the end times battles may come, but we know how the story ends. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, behold, the dwelling place of God is with man. He will dwell with them, and they will be his people, and God himself will be with them as their God. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and death shall be no more. Revelation. That's the finish line. That's what we're fighting for. The Nephilim were never the main story. Jesus always was. If this series opened your eyes to the cosmic battle in Scripture, share it with someone who needs to hear this. Comment Jesus wins if you're ready for his return. And if you're not yet a believer, today is the day. Romans 10:9 says, if you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord, and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. Don't wait. The days of Noah are here again.